Namaste. So, the subject for today is the mystery of love. So, why is love a mystery? Is it really mystery? Well, most people who are very pragmatic, the mystery of divine love. So, many people, love by its nature is divine. So, someone was correcting about the topic. So, love by its nature is divine. There is no other love, all else, as we will see. So, the mystery part is because if when we talk to people and ask them, what do you want in life? People speak about knowledge. Everybody wants knowledge, and there is a whole rush for knowledge, in whatever way we get it. Then people want power because, power is something through which they execute, they fulfill their dreams, ambition. So one wonders what is love doing here? In creation, love is there, it's the undercurrent of life. And what is it doing? So there is a kind of humanity which has developed around suppressing the element of love and expanding upon knowledge and power because they think this is what is required in life. Even when you read about the description of the divine, I've often wondered why he is described only as omniscient and omnipotent. And where is that love element which is missing? So it only speaks about our approaches to life and to the divine, a very utilitarian approach, where we think knowledge is going to help us and we think that power is going to help us. But what about love? Many people think it's a distraction, it is something to be kept aside. And there's a kind of humanity which grows suppressing the heart's finer emotions, and we know what it becomes. It becomes precisely what is described in various Indian scriptures as an asuric humanity. Asuric humanity climbs in knowledge. It develops the power, but it lacks in love. There is a very interesting description of the mother where she speaks about a group of people on earth who came from the moon, and she says that they don't have a psychic being because they didn't evolve through the normal process on earth. They left the moon when it grew cold, and psychic being is found upon earth, and therefore because of the lack of psychic being, eventually through contamination, surely they may have developed it, possibly have developed to some extent. But while they could intellectually climb to great heights, and even they could command a tremendous technology, yet because of the missing element of the psychic, through which love comes out, they tend to become some of the cruelest people who can really torture any amount of, who have a vicarious insensitivity to pain their own and pain in others. And this is where we realize that without love, this world would have long gone to blazes. Because it is love that holds the world together. It is the love that awakens in even an atom. It lights up the fire to climb high and unite with its source. It is because of love that there is delight in this world. Otherwise, we'll have everything, but there will be no joy. Even the most ordinary person, even when he says that, he doesn't care for anybody, yet he's doing it out of some kind of a most ignorant, most hard self-love. Love for oneself. That's why one is doing. So love is something which, however distorted and debased, is the very sap of existence, and it takes us through the doors, passing beyond where we encounter this most fascinating aspect of the divine, that is delight. How did love come into existence? So we know that divine is all-knowing and he is all-powerful. So when the creation started, knowledge and power are enough because, what is to be done is done and the power is there to do it. And then when they started, creation at some point in the process of doing things, something went wrong, to make a long story short, and creation plunged into inconscience. And what went wrong was that because creation is about multiplicity, as many beings were being created. At some point, initially, each of them represented an aspect of the divine, some power of the divine, and they all began to think it is my knowledge and it is my power. And then the moment we think it is my knowledge and my power, the whole chaos starts, and eventually they lost all of it, and fell right into the mud of inconscience. So when this happened, there was a cry from there to save. And at that point of time, the power that leaped from the heart of the divine right into creation is the power of love. So it was the bridge thrown. Initially, it has not manifested. What has manifested is knowledge and power. But love has entered into the creation as its savior. At one place, Mother says, consciousness has built the world, but love is its savior. And it is love which, from the darkest in conscience, is pulling out everything towards that oneness. And that's what we see, that because of love there is a sense of secret oneness. If we want to understand it scientifically, why creation fell? Well, creation fell because there was a sense of separativeness. And leaving aside everything else, we can understand that what is there which will link each unit, because the divine is becoming many. So what is the power which is going to link one unit with another and another unit with another? So that power is missing, and that power is the power of love. It's only when it comes that it ties whole creation in a single sutra. So love at one level is that which ties everything horizontally that exists on every plane. Love is also the power that ties the lowest to the highest. So it's the power which is the evolutionary energy which is carrying creation upward. It is also the power that links the individual to the collectivity, the creatures, not only to the creation but to themselves. Now, in the journey of evolution, where does it manifest? I remember once, as a fresh medical graduate, during my internship, that scene is so vivid in my memory. We had some kind of a program which was there, different doctors were presenting something. And I remember there was a chart drawn there, and in that chart it was shown seat of emotions. In human brain, we see that in the process of evolution, in the human brain itself. So there is the animal brain, and then there is the brain, the reptilian brain, and then there is the limbic system, which basically has emotions, and then comes the rational thought. And the person who had drawn the chart said, you see, emotions are inferior to reason. And I remember it was like a shocking experience for me. I said, are you sure? He said, huh. So though I had read physiology, but I had never seen it like this. And then it took me some time to understand what it means. So what it means really, when we look at the evolutionary process, what happens between the reptile and human beings, something happens which is something very unique. If we look at the animal creation, there is some kind of a feeling which begins to emerge. And this feeling, this sense of emotion emerges not because emotions are inferior to reason, but simply because, unhampered by the mind, the psychic presence begins to, blossom. So that love is born because the psychic presence starts from the higher mammals. It is not just, in the reptiles, we don't find it except as the spirit of the species. Even in the bird, to an extent, we can see it in the spirit of the species. But the moment mammals come upon earth, we begin to see some kind of a psychic feeling. And at least some mammals, after a certain degree of development, they can begin to express a range of emotions. So recently there was one very interesting news item which went through, that people who feel very lonely, so what do they do now? Psychiatrists are very busy people, and they can't give the kind of treatment that lonely people want. So they go and they hug a cow. Must have read it, no? I think in Australia or someplace. And when they hug a cow, they pay a good amount of dollars for it. I don't know how much. Definitely more than a psychiatrist. But who earns that money, I don't know, whether it's the cow or the cow owner. But the cow doesn't mind. So now look at the paradox of it. Can't this treatment be given by human beings? No, not because of the social and moral issues, but simply because human beings cannot love with the kind of simplicity that you will see in the animal world. And that is because the psychic presence begins to show up. It's like the little bird, like the dawn, which is just coming up the horizon. So we'll find in dogs, in horses, in elephants, in cows, a kind of emotional, which is actually, though it takes the form of emotion, but emotional center is right because of the psychic presence in matter. So it's because it is touched by the psychic, the emotional center awakes. And that's why dogs can be so faithful. Dogs can really, take care of the master. They will, even if you mistreat them, one should never, but they would still continue to express faithfulness. Horses are known to give their lives. Now, this is what love can do. The kind of sacrifice that some animals can do. Elephants are known to, travel long distances to save their masters because they sense it. So this is the kind of love that certain animals who have climbed to a degree of height, and perhaps that is the reason why in certain religions, for instance, in Hindu religion, it is proscribed to kill a cow, because it's like the psychic presence is developing to a point, leaving aside the outer advantages, disadvantages. So when the moment psychic presence begins to blossom, then there is something sacred about that creature. So the sacredness derives from the psychic presence. So what happens when the mind comes? Very strangely and paradoxically, it veils the psychic presence. So that's why when we read the biblical story, we hear about the fall of Adam and Eve from that initial innocent stage. What were they doing in the innocent stage? They were in love. Actually, if you read the story, it's very interesting. They were in love and they were moving in there. There was nothing but love and delight, but not on earth. They were out there. And then they ate an apple and there was a worm inside. And this worm in the apple is the urge to know. And they were bit by the serpent, the iridescent serpent. So the urge to know, and this urge to know creates, brings the fall. So what does knowledge and the presence of the mind do? On one side, it immediately weighs the love because it's a necessity. Now knowledge must climb and discover who I am, who everything else is. Love is not concerned. Love discovers in a much more swifter way. For love, it is not that I want to know this attribute, this part, this aspect, or that aspect. Love just merges and knows it. See the difference of the knowledge between the knowledge that comes through love and the knowledge that comes through a climbing of the mind is this, that mind will pick up this aspect, then another one, then it will fight, try to compare, contrast, unite, join, and therefore it will arrive at a figure of the ineffable formless. But what will love do? It will bypass this whole process. It'll just completely fuse out of the force of love and declare Raso Vaisaha, his delight. So it's very difficult to understand for somebody who is approaching through the mind that what is this person speaking. So this is what happens in human beings also when love is inhibited, which is what unfortunately a lot of civilization has developed around knowledge and power. Because knowledge is money and power is money. Or knowledge is power and of course power is money. So that's how it has developed. But because love is missing, it has been done by suppressing the heart's finer emotions. So mind has veiled it, and because of that there is all chaos and confusion. There is disorder, there is evil, one may have all the money, one may have all the power, but unless there is love, unless there is that sense of delight, one is the lack of love will make one feel always as a separate entity. And therefore there is a natural tendency towards selfishness, towards evil, towards crime, because one is thinking only of oneself. People in whom the energy of love is very much diminished cannot think beyond themselves. It's not their fault. But they just can't. They are all the time busy only with their own life because they cannot understand that, all existence is one. At the same time, what they miss is delight. So when they miss delight, then they seek it through drugs, they seek it through, various forms of, they seek pleasure, they seek thrills. Through the counterculture movement that came up. Now, why all this came up? Because the society was being organized in an extremely rational way. It was seen as a mechanized industry where science and industry will come together and solve the problem of human beings. What happens as a result? We had two great wars because it was developing, completely ignoring the energy of love, till the heart of man broke out into revolt and it declared, we want no education. And then we see that, the songs like Imagine, the world is one, unity, all this came because suddenly there was all that was suppressed inside the energy of love. There was no love. Everything was according to an order. Even the parents and everybody, they dealt with children as do this. Why? Because our parents said so. And why your parents said so? Because parents of parents said so. Or because a book says so. Or because a religion says so. But the sense of heart, of course, love is there in human heart. But even that had become codified and therefore stifled. Now you see times have begun to change. Love has begun to blossom. So when love blossoms, what is the sign? What is the change of relation between parents and child? In classical times, parents had a slot and a child had a slot. So parents were supposed to do all the adult things. But if the child spoke about it, you're a child, better be within the limit. So what was happening was children would in front of parents bring out a very good facade. They would touch the feet, And parents would say, my child is best, never smokes, everything. But they are just throwing the smoke bud stuff before they are coming and meeting the parent. Now it is different. Now, parents and children have become friends. They even, take each other's names. Why? Because this energy of love has come, which tries to link everybody with a sense of equality. Many of the things that we see today, including, the earth is a living entity, animals, save animal movement, many of these movements are because this energy of love, which was long suppressed, the entire last 5, 6, 7, 800, God knows, 1,000 years of civilization all over the world. What was it? Despite all the religions, it was completely diminishing of the energy of love to an extent where during the Black Plague, people were actually eating. Sometimes even their own child they have killed and eaten. Because that's how, yes, because they needed, there was no bread, and in an extreme process they have gone. And they had devised ways and means to help out each other, that, okay, I'll take your child and you take my child, because you can't kill your own child. To that extent it had gone, a complete depravity. God knows whether it was the consciousness had entered that point. We had inquisitions, we had conquest, where brutality, barbarism, the worst kind of humanity we see. And its culmination takes place during the First and Second World War. It's like the great, all that was suppressed inside, and all that was dark and ugly came out in the Second World War, where we see Hitler now asking a mother or a lady whether you want to kill your child first or your husband first, or this child first or that child first. So what do we see in this entire process of last 1,000 years? What is suppressed? The energy of love. And that's why we see that during this period, very paradoxically and interestingly, India, which has always been a beacon source of light, what was happening in India? People think that India was just suppressed and, slaves. Something was happening in the country of what was called as slaves, which saved humanity. And what was happening when we read the medieval movement? It was a period of the saints. And what were these saints doing? The Bhakti Yoga. If you read you see in Vedic time, there is knowledge, jnana. Then comes, Upanishadic age, again, jnana, high philosophical debates. But this time, because the energy of love was so much diminished, we see that there was an emergence of love, or this love was carried in the heart of these saints and sages, actually all over the world. If you read Saint Francis of Assisi and many others, Saint Augustine, many of these apostles who really embodied such a wonderful love. But in India, we see an entire bhakti movement, whether we see Sikhism, whether we see Kabir and many of these, because somebody had to embody this energy of love, and they were the custodians. Till again now we see that post Second World War, all this energy of love which was stifled has burst out. And now we see the world flooded with love. But quite naturally, this energy has come out and is one of the greatest energy. That's why it has come in the end. So it is the crown of the movement of yoga. And we don't know how to handle it, because nobody taught us. In the schools, the education, we are taught history, physics, geography, and all the subjects. I don't know whether there is a subject called learning how to love. And it is left to children to explore or to be taught at home. And they don't know. So they know everything, but they don't know how to connect with each other. And yet, love is there, which has burst into this creation. I can see the last 50 years, especially last 20 years, this energy is trying to, enter in a tremendous way. And perhaps because of that, one of the things that the virus did on one side, like an adverse force, putting people away from each other, which is very strange, Stay away, suspicion. So and so is a carrier of virus. Just like the dark ages, just like lepers and tuberculosis patients were treated as pariahs. So now the new pariah is somebody who has not taken the vaccine. He has to be seen with suspicion. But the beauty is that during this period, because love is in the in creation, has leaped into creation, it is operating in ways which we cannot even imagine. There are such wonderful stories. So love is the savior of creation. Without love, this creation we can develop technologically to the utmost. We can have all this, artificial intelligence and robotics, and we may feel it's so wonderful that we can replace every organ of the body. But we'll become a society which is perfect and exact and, artificial and false, because love is missing. So without love, we cannot have, we'll miss upon two most crucial elements of life is the truth of interconnectedness of the universe, and what we'll also miss is the power that is going to uplift us because of love. See, the cry of love is always it yearns for a perfect state. The love can take manifest itself in an idealist. He yearns for an ideal state. He yearns for a perfect love. He yearns for justice in this world. So this yearning in the human consciousness is a yearning born out of the power of love. That's why it is called as labor of love, and it is willing to undergo any amount of sacrifice. We see sacrifice always associated with love. Why? Because love is the only one which can give itself completely for the sake of a great truth. When we read French Revolution, Indian Revolution, we see people what kind of sacrifices they could make. And every war is a story of that. They could make this sacrifice because they were moved by love. There is a very beautiful Dante's Divine Comedy, and how does it end? When Beatrice he sees in his vision that she comes, ordinary peasant girl, and saves him. So he just asks her one question: why did you come to save me? He says, because of love. Love that binds and moves the stars. So this is the tremendous power within us, and we are not taught how to harness it. It is that mysterious element which can give us spontaneous delight. People have this ignorant belief that I must get love to feel happy. Well, of course, when love comes, we feel happy. It's the only thing which really gives happiness in the truest sense. All else is a mimicry. But what happens? Because we are pining from an external human source, or maybe a cow, maybe a dog, or maybe a tree. So after a while, because all sources and instruments are limited, so after a while these instruments have the limitation of receiving and transmitting the energy of love. That's why when people expect that, Mr. or Miss so-and-so must have this, that. So I often tell them, you probably are wanting God to marry God. Because, nobody can fit into this bill, and look at the fellow, there will be so much pressure on the person. Have you ever imagined one has to become Mr. Perfect or Miss Perfect for, satisfying somebody? So, and if the person becomes Mr. Perfect and Miss Perfect, as an aside, why would he necessarily come and be with you? The point here is not, the point is that this is a erroneous approach of love. Love is everywhere in everything, but we are always wanting it from limited, finite objects. Now, when we want love from finite objects, then we will get finite love. Finite love means it will have a term and end. Try whatever you may. After some time, it will change into drudgery, it will change into a mechanical process, it will change into habit, it will change into duty. And of course, we will have many beautiful names to it, but it is finite. Finite by its nature will be limited. So what is really the way to get to that ultimate source? So here we remember that love came into the universe as a savior. It is at the very core of things, at the very source of things. So that's where we have to enter. That's why this love as an emotion which originally turns towards human beings, first it is only turned towards oneself. One loves one's body as if it is going to last forever. And then as the body begins to grow old, one loves the creams and the packs and the vitamins that are going to probably make the body live forever. And then one still grows old. Then one wants to be surrounded by cooteries and flatterers who will say, oh, you're very young, you look wonderful, smart. And when even they go away because your money has gone, then you fall into love of God. But that's not the approach. So when we love limited finite objects, there is a whole gradation through which we move. Initially, it is loving myself. Self not in the highest sense, but self, the self of body, the self of desire, which is what is called as a relationship where one is actually looking for the gain that one may get in a relationship. One is not interested in anything else. As long as the gain is there, till then, one gives. The moment one discovers that nothing more I can get out of this relationship, one tends to gradually walk away. So this is the most primitive kind of love. Then one also loves very ignorantly that those who are lookalikes, those who speak the same language, those who come from my own community, again all these are limited forms of love. Then love expands and says, okay, I will love, initiate the process. So when we are speaking of I will love, we are coming closer to the divine origin, because divine loved threw himself into creation. And I will love, and but I want the return. So this is the next level of loving, where we love but we seek return in some form or the other. If the return doesn't come, we tend to turn away. The third level is where we love. We don't want a return, but we want time to time a little SMS or a WhatsApp message that you're so lovely, wonderful person. Thank you for all your love. So we want some kind of acknowledgement. We want to say that, you made such a nice food. Thank you so much. Some acknowledgement. The dress you gave is lovely dress. So, in one term, all the birthday gifts. But yeah, it's okay. One should acknowledge, nothing wrong with it. But I'm saying the person who loves with this idea that at least they should be acknowledged. But it is already a very high stage of love. Then what happens? Next level is where one loves because one can't help it. Such is the love of the divine. Where he loves, he doesn't condemn, he doesn't judge. Even if you criticize him, he'll say, okay, doesn't matter. This is my dirty job. I'll come and still love you. You fall into that ditch because of your own problems and you call him. He'll not say, oh, you sinner, you have rolled into the mud again. He'll say, okay, I'll enter the ditch and save you. My hands will be dirty. It doesn't matter. This is what I am. This is my job description of the divine. Okay, so how do we arrive at this stage? We cannot arrive it in the stepwise process. Either we have to wait through a long process of evolution, through which we can and we will arrive at a state where we love because it's our nature to love. We have discovered the core of everything. Otherwise, very difficult, because the mind will never allow us to reach there. People who are very mentalized, they start seeing motives. Oh, somebody loves. There must be a purpose. So people see a motive everywhere, because that's how the mind works, and selfish motive. Whereas a simple and direct way is to turn all these emotions toward the divine in what is known as bhakti. So what really is bhakti? All these emotions which are right now scattered into this world. So and so is my teacher, so and so is my father, mother, sister, brother, friend, beloved, wife, child, all these relations. One begins to turn toward the divine. So divine becomes the teacher, the friend, the lover, the playmate, the paramour, the child, everything he becomes. Father, mother. And when we do that, initially there's a phase when there is a narrowing. So suddenly all the love that was scattered everywhere turns toward the divine. So for everything we are grateful to the divine. And because love and gratitude are very slight difference. Gratitude is simply a little earthiness of love. When you mix love, which is too ethereal, that rose, that splendor which is burning, when you mix it with the mud of earth, it becomes gratitude. Very beautiful. It's the flower which, blooms on earth. It's very rare to have gratitude in the human heart. I'm not talking of that kind of gratitude where people say thank you with something else in mind, or whether it's just a manner they have learned. But spontaneous gratitude is a sign that the energy of love and of the soul is very active. So when they turn toward the source of love, it is then they first discover, or we can first discover, that the hub of love is within us, and that is the psychic being. Its nature is love. Nothing else. It smiles at everybody and everything. And it is this psychic being which has the power to transmute human love by this touch into something which is ethereal and divine. When there was a story shown in the ashram playground, the story of Sati Anusuya, where there is a human lady who by the power of her love could turn even the gods into children. So mother laughed. She said, I am very happy to watch this film. And she was asked that, why mother? She said, this kind of love only human beings can do. What do you mean, mother? Even gods cannot love like this. Why? Because they don't have within them the psychic being. See, this is a big mystery. One place Shivinda speaks about in Savitri, that the white gods missed something. What is it that they missed? See, what are these gods? They represent knowledge and power. And unless there is a god of love who represents love, they represent an aspect of the divine. That's it. A god of knowledge ports knowledge. A god of, power of various kinds ports power. But in human beings, all these different aspects are brought together in the form of our personality. It is said that there are 365 types of elements which constitute our personality, or perhaps 33 crores, as when we speak about the pantheon of devatas, the different kind of working of the gods. But what is at the core of a human being is love, which is the psychic being. So this psychic being, because it's found on earth, human beings have a capacity to love which is not found even in the gods. Ever see a god sacrificing himself for a human being? They always come and test. So they'll come and see if Raja Harishchandra is a good guy or not, how much he can keep to his promise. They have this penchant for testing. But see a human being, how readily he is ready to sacrifice. The gods receive the sacrifice and then they give. But human beings can love without anything that they can get. So this is the power of love, and because it is right at the center of the heart. So you see, again, we can understand it if we look at the development. In the process of development, what comes first? The heart or the brain? Brain comes later. The first time we see the manifestation of a brain is of course, in the cobra, we see the little bit of brain which is coming up. Before that, there is nervous system. There is the twitching and responses. Heart, meaning thereby something which throws blood into the, whole organism, comes first. And therefore, when we look at really this whole development process, this little seed which is present in everything, this heart which is the center. So while brain is the seat of consciousness in human beings, heart is from where all the dynamic energy and the impulsions arise. And if we miss out on this element of the heart, we'll miss upon everything. We'll collapse as a civilization. Love alone can really save. And there is such a beautiful, there was a film once, I forget the story. It was about another film about doomsday where aliens have come and they want to, put the earth on, it will be doomed. And they are actually they are the ones who have put earth on destruction mode. So everything is getting destroyed and nobody knows why. Now there is a child who is with one of the aliens, and a time comes when this alien says, we have to destroy because you guys have messed it up and it has to be destroyed. You are the people who have created a problem. And that time, this child and the mother, the alien watches the kind of love that is there between them. And then he says, we must abandon our plan. Why? Because love still exists. Now, I'm not here to tell alien stories, regardless of that. But the idea is that without love, what this earth will be, we cannot imagine. It will harden up, it will shrivel up. People who don't have the energy of love, they harden. Some people say, oh, somebody is very hard. And it is this lack of energy of love which is why there is cruelty. Cruelty is the other extreme. There are people who are cruel in many ways, physically cruel. We have probably gone past that stage. But then they emotional atyachar, they are emotionally cruel. They are cruel in subtle ways. Cruelty can manifest in many ways. That somebody is, asking for something, you just turn away from the person. You deliberately ignore. Cruelty can go to a point where it wants to hurt someone. And all these are various manifestations of deviating from the energy of love. So this energy we must bring out and harness. For a moment, let us forget about attachment and love, but just to understand that without this, life would be meaningless. So when it emerges into creation, it naturally takes the form of attachment. Love is the power that actually binds. It is the power that connects this entire creation. Not only human beings, it connects human beings to animals, to plants, to matter. There are people who suddenly look at the sky and say, wow, so beautiful. What is that? It is love. They connect with the sky, and in the colors they see the images of gods. They see dawn every day and they say, oh, this is a goddess which has come to smile upon my life. I'm not saying this is animism. There is the truth of the dawn goddess, but they are able to connect with creation in this way. When they look at a beautiful stone, because love, beauty and ananda go together. They are close cousins, and harmony. Wherever there is love, there will be beatitude. Love seeks beauty. And love seeks ananda. Wherever there is love, there will be ananda. So one way people often ask that, how to choose my partner. Please don't write to me as a matchmaking fellow. But one very simple test is, people write those, that SWOT analysis, that plus, minus. It can never be done that way. You will write all the pluses and you will miss something very crucial. So what is important is, do you feel happy and comfortable in somebody's company? If you feel it, there is love. Now, of course, there are people who can be comfortable and happy anywhere. That's because they have found the source within. I'm not speaking of that. Such a person finds the divine presence everywhere. But if you are comfortable and happy, if you just feel happy, not because of this or that, not because the person looks very smart, handsome, beautiful, convent educated, PhD, has a 5-figure salary, all that is not relevant. It's because there is that blossoming of love, therefore there is joy. And because love seeks harmony, it leads to another paradoxically kind of tussle. There are people who don't have that energy of love, where marriages are marriage of convenience. You'll find it very interesting that one has got why it is a study to be made that why love marriages don't work out so much as arranged marriages. Arranged marriages are marriages of convenience under social pressure. So one is not even looking for joy. Joy, for that, everything else is there. So they are looking for money and somebody who at home can provide the things. Love marriages, because love has entered the scene, it says, I want harmony. So then the person says, you don't understand me. So, because you want understanding, harmony will start with the understanding. You don't accept me just as I am. Acceptance. All these things, because love wants harmony. That's why love is the most difficult God to please. Sri Aurobindo speaks of it in Savitri, that the dissatisfied God here could dwell. Is so dissatisfied. Any other God of knowledge will be happy. There are people whose marriages work like this. I'm giving an example of marriage where the man is constantly reading something or, busy watching TV. The wife is cooking and, serving food. There is no love, but it lingers very long. Simply because love is hardly there, it's in the background. Or there are those where both are making money and very happy that they're building new houses, investing money because it's all on interest. The moment love enters, it says, you don't understand me. Now, money becomes irrelevant, knowledge becomes irrelevant because love is there. It's a very demanding God because it seeks intensity and eternity of union. Love by its nature wants union. Love is the power to unite. And therefore, you see, very often people say, Hamare zamane mein, in our time we were different. Naturally you had arranged marriage, you didn't experience the energy of love. That's why somebody says, better to love and fail than never love at all. Whereas when love enters, people you can't restrain because now the energy of love has developed. It wants union, it will find ways and means. Try stopping a teenager who is in love, put the person under all the locks. He'll figure out a way. Because it's the power of energy which seeks union at every level. But again, we have to be careful. This union is not just at the physical level, at the sensory level, at the intellectual level, at the emotional level, as a companion, at the deepest psychic, spiritual level, where there is a commonality of aspiration. This is the energy of love. It seeks union. But it's not satisfied even with union. That is the problem. It seeks the intensity of union. And even intensity, fine, it seeks the eternity of union because that is what makes delight everlasting. So, love is the most demanding God and it cannot be satisfied at a human level. It can only be fulfilled in the divine. Only He can provide the intensity and eternity. And then, when we receive from Him the love, then we can transmit it and become vehicles. Then there will be a wonderful life because one is not depending upon a finite object. But originally when we depend upon a finite object, that's when it becomes attachment. So what is attachment? We can figure it out like, the difference between solar panel driven cars and the cars which have to plug into petrol or, electrical. So when you have to plug in, that's attachment. You have to attach. So there is a hub where you go and attach. So as long as there is petrol which is coming, which it will dry up after some time, again you attach. So attachment works by a means in ignorance to draw the energy of love. Usually it is a give and take. So the person, if there is somebody who is very emotionally dependent and just wants to draw and doesn't want to give, it can be very dangerous to a person who is not open to the infinite ranges. Because then the person is just drawing the energy and you are not able to rejuvenate and there is nothing which is returning. So attachment works bad for everybody. It can never satisfy the need of love. How much ever you can put into the bank of attachment, one day it will crash. Because how much will you put? This bank keeps saying you put more money, like some banks say, sir, we'll give you a new credit card, put this money, that money. So you end up, investing, but it's like a bottomless well into which it goes. That's why attachment, eventually, whatever it may be, it will bring pain. But in ignorance, this is the way it expresses, because love is the force that binds the creation. So you are attached. It takes the form of attachment in human nature. But the day we tap into the very source of love, the highest, the infinite, then we don't need to attach ourselves. What does it mean? Does it mean that we will not have the anymore all the joys that we get through attachment? Everything will be there. This is the mistake that we make. It is not an impersonal, ethereal something. See that line in Savitri, where Savitri says, I am still to you the same Madran Savitri. Heaven's love fulfills but cancels not our earths. What does it mean? Will people who are having this ethereal love and no attachment, they will not go on outing, they will not have a picnic, they will not sit together and enjoy a cup of tea? Will they not sit together and hear lovely songs? They will do all this. But they are not depending on the other person for getting it. That is what is the whole out of which the whole comes out. That divine creates all this so that each becomes whole. So each is complete within oneself. But this too completes. There was a very beautiful little saying I had heard, I don't know from whom, I had read, picked up one of the cards and I had put in my room for a long time. It is when two halves meet each other, they have no choice but to join, to become full. But when two wholes, those which are complete, join, that is beauty, that is love. We don't need another person to complete ourselves. That is the beauty of Shiva and Parvati. Ideal relation, Radha and Krishna. They don't need each other to complete themselves. They are complete. That's why when gopis go, they can't understand why is Radha not affected by Krishna's departure. They're all crying. They don't understand why is Radha able to be in this delight. Because for Radha, Krishna's physical coming and Krishna's physical going is not the issue. She is in touch with Krishna all the time. She has become Krishnamaya. So when we connect with the divine and his infinity, and then we share this love with creation, we'll do everything. We'll sing a song, we can, enjoy a nice meal sitting with friends, but we are not depending to receive that love, expectation, reciprocation, understanding, all those things from the other person. Acceptance, none of these things. Because we have opened to the infinite source. Then we just radiate this love in the entire creation in manifold ways. Love is the only thing which can express itself in a million ways because it's the delight, the original creative power. It will bring out new things. That's the beauty of love. When two people love each other, or it can be with any number, you will see that their life always invariably renews itself in new ways. Why? Because there is love. And the day love tends to, go into the background, as they say, aate dal ka bhav, because outer thing. Then what happens? Then the newness gets lost. It's not because it's just the vital issue. It's simply because the newness is lost because the energy of love which brings delight. See, original creative impulsion is delight. Delight that created the world, not desire. When delight is gone, then creativity is gone. But if two people continue to love, they will bring out many new ways to, bring out the newness of love. And this is only possible if each of them has opened to the divine. That's why in the yoga, it is advised that first step first. There are 3 steps of, play of love in the world. It's beautifully described by Nalini Da in his book, Manusir Bhajan. First step, we love ignorantly, blindly, which is what attachment is. Have the pain, sorrow, suffering, joys, thrills, pleasure, all these XYZ. So we go through that. Then we say life is like this, let's turn to the divine. Then love turns to the divine. Now it's a narrow path. Instead of loving this, that, everybody, we draw the strings, we cut the strings, we turn it all toward the divine. In second stage. Then when we discover the divine, then it's an outpouring of the same love into many, manifold ways. Then we can love man. Before that, we cannot love man. Because unlike animals, see, animals and plants, it's very easy to love animal, plants, gods, even God. Very easy. Very difficult to love man. Because God you will love, He is the giver. Poor fellow, He is always giving, giving, giving. Whatever you may do, He will give. So who won't be satisfied and happy? Animals, invariably they will respond. I don't know if you can tame a cobra, what happens, but people do even that. So animals will respond in some way or the other to the energy of love. Plants, very much they respond. Trees will respond. Love a man and you give love, and third day you'll ask, today you didn't give me that kind of a welcome smile. Instantly, a word, an act can slay the god. That's how death says in Savitri. At the human level, because of the veil of the ego. What does the ego do? Comes between us and the power of love, the psychic being. That's why in human beings it's difficult to love human beings. So the caution that many people said, they said, cut off these attachments and find the divine who alone is the source of love. But the problem is, if that is what the ultimate end of the play is, then what is the purpose of this play? So there is a third step which has to be undertaken. Of course, do it with caution. It's bungee jumping. Stay connected with the divine. Turn to him for all the needs of love and the wonders of that delight. But pour it upon earth in the manifold relationships. Be it husband, wife, lover, beloved, child, friends, everybody. So then love can find the right soil to blossom. Love requires a tremendous strength and wideness. It cannot grow in a narrow heart. It is the power that binds creation. Just imagine, it cannot stay stifled. That's why when the energy of love comes, I'm sure people have experienced love. What happens? You start with loving the person. But do you stop with the person? You love everything and everybody connected with the person. Love tends to do that. You will love the parents, you will love the husband of the person, you will love the... Oh, sorry. It's okay. Yeah. You will love the children of the person, you will love the object, you will love the place, you will love everything. Because love loves, and eventually to everybody interconnected. There is a prayer of the mother in prayers and meditation where she says that I am offering this people who are inhabiting the ship, and then she says I am offering everybody who is connected with each other, and then she says I am offering all the inhabitants of the sea, and then she says, and through this, because each one is interconnected with somebody or the other, I am offering the entire creation to you. So love is very wide. Wherever we see that, in a story of love, where it has ended tragically, where it has ended into, I love you and you love me, that's the end of the day. Then after some time, love vanishes. It's I versus you. Love will not last. The moment we get into that selfish mode, love can enter into a selfish mode, but it wants to evolve. It wants to have wings to fly into the heavens. We can't make it fly with moth wings. So, if we don't widen it, then after some time it will quietly say, sir, thank you so much, I am leaving. You won't even know that love has passed. People will continue to live together. But somewhere they will feel that joy is missing in life. And they will want to bring that joy through 1,000 kinds of stupidities. What is the way? Way is to turn within and turn to the divine. That's the only place where we'll find all the time. But do we stop there? No. Then every element we love and every being we love, every creature, and we'll form special relations. Even the divine upon earth forms special relations with different people. It's not like a universal love. The divine, Shri Krishna loved Duryodhana as much, as well as Arjuna. But with Arjuna, it's a different relation. With Karna, it is different. Because love is manifold. It's delight of existence. So, find the divine, link with him. Let us not be ignorantly attached to all the things where the ego keeps wanting some satisfaction. It will not happen. If the ego, we love egoistically, we want satisfactions, then we will see that very soon this energy will fade away. Slightest disturbance and love will withdraw. And so that is a wrong way. Wrong way in the sense, the early way to love. But it will bring pain and suffering. Some joy, but pain and suffering. Turn it inside to the divine, life will be full of delight. Then come back to earth and engage in the manifoldedness of love and the manifold expressions of the delight of existence. And that is the secret of building a lasting harmony. That is the secret of finding eternal beatitude. And that is the secret of turning life into a wonderful expression of a creative, all-embracing Ananda, whose key is with love. Thank you.
how can a householder like me practice love at home?
Anybody can practice love, but as I said, first step of love, if we really want to love, is to find the source. Without that, whether we are householders or whether we are, turned away from the world, staying alone and single, love will be maimed and imperfect. Once we understand it, then even as a householder, the first step is to turn this love toward the divine, and all our expectations, all our understanding, all everything we will turn to the divine for that. Incidentally, many of the great yogis, they were all householders, including Sri Aurobindo and the mother. So, very much love can be found as a householder. It is even perhaps maybe a better mode. But emotions have to turn toward the divine. But whatever we receive from the divine, we share it in the household. We share it with the husband or wife or children, but we are not turning toward them for anything that we may get. Now, it is a phase through which one has to pass. It's not the end. The more we come in contact with the divine, the more this love will begin to show up in our relationship within the house. But this indispensable stage is there. It cannot be that without turning to the source and finding the soul within, or the divine love above, we will have a happy life. It won't. It invariably will lead to uh, either a kind of continuation of love and hate relationship, or hate is a too strong a word, but separating to unite and uniting to separate, as Sri Aurobindo put it, or it may lead to ruptures, or it will lead to various experimentation, or it may lead to turning away of the emotions elsewhere, or it will lead eventually to just a state of mechanical togetherness or duty, none of which is love. And it can lead to serious issues. So the solution is first find the source. Turn the emotions inward, but outwardly fulfill what you have to do, but always seeing that same divine in whoever we are dealing with. It could be the husband, it could be wife, it could be children. Always keep in mind that deep within they are divine. So, what does it mean in practical terms? It means while it doesn't mean that because they are divine, now I'll obey them and fulfill all their wishes. It doesn't mean that. It means when I treat them and deal with them, I will know that it is the divine in them that I love. So I can never be harsh. I can never be cruel. I can never be, I'll tend to naturally sacrifice to the divine in the person. When you give love, you will give to the divine in that person. You will not bring the barriers that ego brings. I am more knowledgeable, I am higher, you are lower. None of these things will come. In fact, it will make life very beautiful. Because most people don't understand the core of love. They just want these outer things, which are very easy to give once we are in connection with the source. Not that we should give with this idea in mind. But it will naturally come. When you are seeing divine in the person, will we say you are lower and lesser and I am higher and greater? It won't. So many of the problems which come because of the ego are sorted out because one person has worked upon the ego and opened himself to the divine. Just one person is required. It need not be both. But yes, the joy and intensity and the fullness of a relationship where both are moving toward the divine and manifesting, that will not be there. But that is a very rare event, one in probably thousand. So we can't expect that to happen. That will happen eventually. That's what the new creation is meant to bring out. But it is still a far cry. So love the divine and know that we love people because, as Yagnavalk put it, one does not love the wife for the sake of the wife, but for the sake of the self. We can put it as a bhakta, one does not love the wife for the sake of the wife, but because she is a child of the divine and she has come in contact with you. It could be wife, it could be husband, child, friend, anybody. You will not spurn away. You will treat with that respect and care because the person has come into your life as a expression of the divine. Divine has sent. And so this spirit that I want to appropriate, I want to possess, I want to extract, all this will go away. One will give love, but it won't be attachment. So if the person goes away for some reason, you will still feel that fullness of love within us. So that is the way to love in family life. Turn to the divine for everything. Whatever we receive, we can pour in relationship. Treat the husband, wife, or children as not our own, but as divine's gift to us. So we have to respect and give whatever when divine has given us something, we'll take care, give the love in a much better way actually, because they are not mine. They are the divine whom we love. And then let life and fate unveil itself. That's a different story. In Mira's life, one may separate, or in Shikhi Dhwaj and Chudala, they may separate and come together in a much higher way. Or in the life of King Bharthari and Pingla, they may go through a state of disillusionment and again come together as two great yoginis. So, this is various options are there.
Perfect example for family life. Actually, there's another question, Dr. Love. What happens if love doesn't get the right response from the object of love?
So it won't. Yeah.
You are my brother, but I don't get the same.
Yeah. So, as I was mentioning, finite love will be limited. We have to understand this. So, right response will come up to a point. It won't come beyond a point, because no finite creature, unless the person is God intoxicated, no finite creature can give the response, because, first of all, even that knowledge base will not be there. The giving itself will begin to dwindle. The other person wants to receive rather than give. Givers are already reached a certain point. So basically, one has to understand that this expectation is a non-starter. So today we use this word that lower your expectation, but we don't know how to really replenish. So it is half the truth. Because if we lower the expectation, we tend to enter into a state of vital apathy, indifference, and the dryness of the energy of love. No, that is not the way. We expect, but we expect everything from the divine, no more from a human vessel. And but we give freely because we don't need, actually. Whatever understanding we are expecting, whatever the joy of togetherness we are expecting, we are receiving from the divine. So it won't happen. It's like saying that, what to do. Nothing really can be done. We have to do only on ourselves. We can't change the person. People try to engage in all kinds of, therapies, and therapies can lead to a kind of a, eventually what happens in most lives. People reach a certain point, and then if the child is there, there are social pressures. So they live on together. They find their own way to, find again those mud-stained pennies lying in the dust to satisfy momentarily the, what they call as love. There is no love in that. Just some pleasure, because when love diminishes, joy of life diminishes. But they don't understand that you can't get the joy of life by seeking pleasure. The only key to get the joy of life is love. That is the key given to man. So if there is love, you will find delight. But if you seek delight, it is too powerful. It will blow us completely. Love is the way. That's why the bhakta reaches a point where he gets ananda. So this is how we have to understand the way creation is. Love the creator, because creation, creator. Then we will receive the highest and ultimate love and infinity of love. Then love, simultaneously, and love everything which is around as belonging to the creator. There will be no issues. Otherwise there will be unhappiness. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Alok. We'll see you all at 5:30 tomorrow evening, and resume discussions. Thank you.
Thank you.